Hi, how's everybody doing today? This is Anthony from the Basement Reef. And if this is your first time tuning into our channel, we're a retail aquatic pet store and houseplant shop located in Columbia, Missouri. We sell both saltwater and freshwater aquarium livestock, as well as a ton of awesome tropical houseplants. And here on this channel, we talk about what we're up to at the store, as well as spotlight all manner of things about these hobbies. Today, we're here to talk about a tank that we take care of at a local dentist's office. Usually for a tank spotlight video, we jump right into it, but I wanted to preface this video with a little bit about it. It's one of the first installs that we ever did top to bottom by ourselves, and while it's an awesome tank, it hasn't been without its problems. We've had it set up for about 2.5 years at this point, and as great as it's looking right now, for about a year of that time, it was just growing algae, and we get rid of that algae and another type of algae would pop up, and we get rid of that and the fish would get sick. And it's been a whole saga. As great as some of our tanks has gone for us, this one has not. But we've powered through it. This client has been an incredibly good sport about it too. They can always see the light on the other end of the tunnel and see that this tank was gonna look good someday. Lately, it really has been. So we prepared a little video all about it. Hopefully you guys like what you see. This is Dr. Willett's tank. It's a 125-gallon mixed reef aquarium that we installed and maintain at a dentist's office here in Columbia, and it represents one of our first top-to-bottom installations we ever did here at the Basement Reef. One of the best parts of this installation was getting to work with a local carpenter named Marcel to design and build a custom stand for this tank. And let me tell you, he really knocked it out of the park. He is not an aquarist, but with just a little bit of input about what an aquarium stand should have, he built by far the coolest stand that I've ever seen. It all starts with this super lightweight canopy. It's easy to get into and gives me all the space that I need to maintain this tank. It's also extremely well ventilated, which is great because running as many T5 light bulbs as we do, it definitely generates some heat. Perhaps the coolest feature are these shelves that break away to reveal a false back hiding the plumbing. The door also slides open for easy access to the sump. This one comes from Echo Aquarium Systems. They're good friends of ours based out of St. Louis. We use lots of their sumps here in the store. I'm sure we'll do a video all about them here soon. For the aquascape, we were lucky enough to be able to get some Haitian live rock before all export of that shut down. It is absolutely stunning large pieces of real live rock, and you don't see that often in tanks anymore. But while the rock looks amazing, I'm still left with a few questions about whether or not this rock could be the source of some of the algae issues that we've had. It's never been an issue in tanks that we've started with other types of rock. Moving on to the livestock, one of the very first things we ever put into the tank was this bubble coral. It has grown up to about the size of a basketball in the 2 years since, and now hosts a pair of fancy white clowns from Sustainable Aquatics. Unfortunately, the second fish of the pair is incredibly camera shy. One of the very first fish that we ever brought over is this falco hawkfish. Now, I'm not somebody who names fish, but these clients are, and they were sure to let me know about a week after he got into the tank that this was Jimmy. Jimmy can always be found lounging around one of his few favorite perches in the tank, usually his Hollywood Stunner chalice. He's sincerely one of the more entertaining fish that I've ever cared for, too. The other remaining fish from the early days of this tank is this clown fairy wrasse. Unfortunately, from the original fish inhabitants of the tank, that's all that's left. So what happened? As I said in the beginning of the video, unfortunately we had a bout where every fish in the tank got sick, and I think it all started with this purple tang. You might notice that he has some head and lateral line erosion, and that's because this fish has been through a lot. As soon as he got into the tank, him and every other fish came down with ick, and we were left with no choice but to bring them all up to the store. So that's exactly what we did. We caught every fish out of the aquarium and left it completely fishless for 60 days while we treated them. I really don't know what I would have done if I didn't have the store and I was still maintaining aquariums just out of my house. Now though, everybody has been back in the tank for a good 6 months, and we've even been able to add a few new fish, like this yellow mandarin. In the months since the fish have been back though, everything is going great. The last of the algae is on its way out, and every single coral in this tank is growing. Take this Lobo for example. While it's been in the aquarium almost since the beginning, it wasn't nearly this large just 6 months ago. Or this Vargas suspiciularia, for example. We've had some of this in the aquarium the whole time too, but lately it's gone out of control. I got this from Kyle at Tampico Coral Farms. He's always great for an oddball coral or two. And while this growth is awesome and the suspiciularia a favorite of patients at this office, it's not without its drawbacks. As you can see, it's thrown a baby clear to the other side of the aquarium. In the end though, it's really easy to see why people like this coral. It has a completely different look from the stony corals that you typically see. That's the thing though. People who have been in this hobby for a long time are attracted to completely different corals than people who have never seen these things before. And soft corals? Well, people who have never seen corals absolutely love them. Even green star polyps are a huge favorite at this office. With all that movement though, it's honestly not hard to see why. If you compare that though to something in the aquarium that I like a little bit more, like this button scully, it gets almost no response out of patients. And that's really interesting to see. Other recent additions to the tank include the start of a rock flower anemone garden. We can't wait to get more of these guys in here. And next to that is a Blastomusa merletti, the perfect low-light coral if you ask me. Well, except for this jack-o'-lantern leptoceres maybe. And lately, we've even started having success with small polyp stony corals, like the Sacropora and these Montes. Moving along, this tank also has several interesting colonies of Euphyllia, like this purple wall frog spawn. This one was actually a giveaway at our store's anniversary event that they just happened to win. I promise there was no preferential treatment. One cool thing about it is how much it's actually purple. That's a little bit of an underrepresented color on the reef. This Indonesian gold torch isn't nearly as stunning as it could be under heavy blue spectrum, but even under T5s it makes an impact. The trade-off is that they grow corals like crazy, and that's a trade that we'll always make. Another coral like that is this cotton candy torch. While cool looking under T5s, under a heavier blue spectrum has two completely different colored tips. It makes me really wonder, before blue spectrum was the norm in the hobby, how many corals like this went by completely unnoticed. This next frog spawn came from Kyle at Tampico Coral Farms again, and when we got it, it was bog standard, but unfortunately a fish nipped it back to almost nothing. I took it back to the store and regrew it, and since, well, you can see, it almost looks like a torch. These corals are really interesting, and I really wonder how many different species there are, or how much we're just identifying the same species different ways. On the other end of the spectrum, however, consider these pipe organ corals. In the hobby, we call them both the same thing, but they look completely different from each other in my eyes. This first one is very wispy and hairy, with thin tentacles, and this next one has thick, almost blade-like polyps. There's no way they can be the same thing if you ask me. And that just about wraps up this tank tour. This tank has tested us in ways that we hope to never be tested again, but we're excited about its future. So, if you like what you saw here today and you want to support your local fish store, why not go bother your local dentist and tell them about this really cool tank that you saw on YouTube. As always, this is Anthony from the Basement Reef. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.